Good evening, everyone. And after that thrilling Formula One quali, we are out here for our Tier 1 Chinese Grand Prix. While everything is starting to simmer up as the drivers are now closer than ever in their championship battle, and we will probably be having a new champion this season. I am Rusty Nish, and alongside me, you have my co commentator, 8 Cylinders, and streaming today, we have Electric. Good evening, boys.
Nice to be here.
So, what do you make of the Chinese GP?
I think it's a track that I personally have a very love-hate relationship with because, well, in my brief period of driving on F1, I've not had much luck there. But I think it's a very exciting track, and it's one where we always see some sort of controversy. We always have some sort of action. It's never one that's a boring race, both in real life as well as in F1. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one for sure. What do you think?
Yep, absolutely. Viewers from last season will know all those heated battles which took place into the final corner as Mara was defending his places last season, and there's quite a bit of contact across. And I personally believe that this is a super technical circuit. The exit you get out of 13 is going to determine if you're going to keep your place or not. The first complex from turn 1 to turn 4 is super technical, where you need to be bang on the brakes and to know a little more, to learn a little more about the track. Let's go into the let's go on and learn a little about the track. Electric.
Back video, blah blah blah. I'm the only
I think
commentator.
the Yep, there you have it. 16 corners with corner 13, the sweeping right hander, which you've got to nail. You've got to be on the throttle super early coming out of 12, but prevent understeer and running wide because that's one of a longer straight you have on the calendar. Much like Darin's back straight, where you, but over here you have DRS assistance as well heading into a hairpin. And turn 6, who can forget Daniel Ricciardo's move on Valtteri Bottas in turn 6? And I'm pretty sure we'll see a lot of moves by our IRC boys as well. Further ahead, talking about the table, Eccentrics ahead with 108 points, with Myth right on his tail with 93. And the battle for P3 is separated by, as you would have it, 3 points.
It is coming right down to the wire between these two boys, and they're really putting on a show for us this season. Coming back to the Constructors' Championship's not very relevant, but in the last round at Silverstone, we had Eccentric taking all 25 points, Myth following up in P2, and Mara in P3. Mara acting as a reserve driver on the day of the race. He did pretty well considering the circumstances, but got a little bit unlucky. But coming back to China, it's a fantastic circuit. It's got a brilliant flow to it. You got varying weather conditions as well, and it's going to be interesting because it's a kind of a technical circuit. It's difficult to get completely right, and there's going to be a number of corners where we'll see the drivers taking a variety of approaches to extract the maximum possible time and hopefully get the competitive edge. And obviously, we've got that massive 1.1 kilometer back straight where even a gap of maybe 6-7 tenths is probably not going to be as big as a disadvantage as in other tracks. You're going to be able to close up pretty quickly. So we've definitely got an interesting race on our hands, and preceding that, we've got a very interesting qualifying on our hands. If you're not familiar with IRC's format, we have a short qualifying of, I believe, 18 minutes before we go on to a 50% race, and we should be heading into the session right about now.
Yep, I like that Aditya still has the bragging rights while representing North, and they won the championship last week. And fair enough for him to continue showcasing that he's a winner from last week. And let's see how he gets on this week in China.
Oh, I also do have to point out that the other two gentlemen joining me here in the commentary box today were the fantastic streamer commentator duo that absolutely dominated that event last weekend, but we're just having a look at the weather forecast here, and I think we have a pretty dry race and qualifying on our hands.
We do, and I'd rather have China dry because I think China wet is just a track where we will not be seeing a lot of overtakes. But talking about quali, what do you guys think will be the pole time? I think last season the pole time was 1:30.5. So do you? I think the general trend has been that these drivers have gotten faster since last season. So let's see quali predictions, guys.
Not going to name any names, but I'm going to go for a low 131, I'll say.
Interesting. Electric, what about you?
To be honest, I would say along the same because I'm really not sure about the quality times. I guess I didn't do any practice here. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that.
I think we'll definitely see an early 1:30 for sure. We got some super fast drivers. We got Masoom coming back after a stint away, but Eccentric and Myth have been on such. They've been on sublime form in both quali and race, and it's going to be hard to look past them in this race.
To also keep in mind that these drivers have been away from the game, well, not counting the Nations Cup that we had last weekend, or not the last weekend, or the weekend before. But it was definitely, it's been a while since these drivers have been racing competitively and racing right at the edge. So it's going to be definitely interesting to see how this quali session pans out. We've just got a couple of drivers coming out here. We've got Black Sheep coming out now. All the drivers on the soft compound tire, which they will hope to start on, because that'll be the well, that's going to be the odd strategy. I think soft, medium, medium, soft, medium, soft. It's going to be an interesting strategy to make happen. And we just see Eccentric going on a flying lap. Rusty, how about you walk us through this?
Yep, absolutely. This sector is all about your downshift and your trail braking. It is super tricky, and you want to nail your throttle out of this because it's a short one. It's a straight ahead, but you could get a lot of wheel spin, and you got to make sure that you've straightened your car heading into turn 6. It's a fairly easy hairpin for you to master, but this left-hander flat out on these cars, but maybe for the first few laps you would like to lift a little bit. Now it's all about the settings of the car you have, because your roll bar stiffness needs to be bang on, because you're throwing your car from the right to the left and back up left while you're pretty much full throttle throughout. Now you start to brake for, in my opinion, the most important corner in this track. This exit out of turn 12 onto 13 is what is going to determine the rest of the long straight. Oops, runs wide, and that's going to. So one thing I've experienced with turn 13 is you don't, in most of the corners, in most of the sweeping left-handers, like say the left-hander early in the track, turn 7, you realize that you're understeering pretty early, but with turn 13, it just hits you out of nowhere. Sometimes you're way deep into turn 13 and then you realize that you're understeering, just like what happened to Eccentric, and you end up going wide. But over here, Masoom seems to be stuck behind the car in front, who's definitely not on a hot lap, but will get a pretty decent tow for all his troubles.
I think that's going to be a big factor down the back straight. The tow is going to be very important, especially during the race when drivers are going to be looking to overtake, because it's going to be pretty hard to follow cars and get overtakes done in sector 2. It's difficult. Maybe
I am
leading
sorry to cut you in, but interestingly, Black Sheep already set a 130 flat, a 130.094. Right off the blocks, he's already smashed last season's quali pole time by 5 tenths, which is massive.
Brilliant drivers racing in Tier 1 here, so I'm not entirely surprised by that. But one thing I am I'm also not surprised by is the fact that my prediction has been absolutely thrown out the window. So disregard that. We're just gonna let's see how the session evolves and see how all the drivers do.
Surprising that everyone seems to be going with a soft approach. I mean, starting on the softs. On a grid of 13, I think like with the medium hard strategy, you could benefit majorly. Moto sets purple in sector 3. Let's see what kind of exit gets on the throttle nice and early. Continue that steering lock, runs, uses all the track he can. Surprisingly, he does not seem to be using a lot of ERS. His ERS is in mode 0, which is pretty much ERS region.
I feel like he may have aborted that lap somewhere in the middle and just chose, maybe in sector 1 perhaps, and just chose to go again, have a nice clean slate. Black Sheep still on provisional pole position. Last 12 minutes of the session here, 6 minutes in so far. Pretty long lap, one of the longest circuits on the F1 calendar, so it's going to be important to time your laps, especially coming down to the last stages of qualifying, as we see Babaji also rocking the Nations Cup representation, representing the West, as he flies down the back straight here. DRS open, top speed, and in the game probably 335 kilometers an hour coming down to the heavy braking zone. Very important to time it here, important to not outbrake yourself. Executed very well there by Babaji. Heading down to turn 16, very important to take as much as you can here. Got to be right on the ragged edge to extract the lap time, and he puts himself in third position at 131.1. Definitely room for improvement there, I say.
16 against super. It's just a pretty hard corner because you can invalidate on the apex, you can invalidate at the exit, but you've got to absolutely throw your car in if you wanna stand and fight with the cars around you. You've got to throw your car and carry all that speed.
One driver who you may notice is not currently on the grid, who I think Masum is filling in for, is Prakarvats, who was in the championship battle at the beginning of the season, but over the past couple of races has not been able to attend and take part in the championship due to personal reasons, and we ensure that he comes back as soon as possible to light up the track once again.
Also joined the 130 club, which is great to see. Masum on a time lap now, I guess.
Interesting to see that we haven't seen any kind of banker lap from Eccentric, Myth, and No More Pro Player. I really expected them to be right up there, a combination of invalidations, just getting a feel for the track right now. As you can see, a couple of drivers getting off the racing line. Masum on his flying lap now. I believe he was purple through sector 1 there, heading down through sector 2. It's gonna be very important, sector 2, because it's gonna set you up well. Also, as you mentioned, turn 13 is gonna be very important as well, because it sets you up well for the DRS straight. But Masum coming through sector 2 here. Ooh, a little bit sideways there, out of turn 12, coming now through 13. Again, car just a little bit unsettled coming through there, and that'll be an invalidation, and that'll be the end of his lap time.
Seem to be struggling with understeer all throughout turn 13. Is really fighting the car to try and get it to bite and try and get the front wheels to bite in. But Eccentric right now on his first time lap, and
Eccentric recreating his favorite scene from Tokyo Drift there, with a massive drift coming through sector 2, and that'll be the end of his lap as well. Just briefly saw there for a second Aditya's name flashed up with wet tires in P15, and then they changed to the mediums. Interesting to use the wet tires right now, but yes, the medium tires will be the tire of choice for the drivers. If they are to start the race in the top 10, medium hard will be the strategy of choice.
either Propi has forgotten to change his ERS settings, or he's actually waiting for the next straight to turn it up. Because he is on a time lap, but his ERS, he's forgotten to change it back to max.
I mean, if we do end up seeing the whole lap without the ERS, we will get a good idea of how much of a difference it makes over the course of a lap time. Have a couple more drivers joining in now towards the last stages of the session. We just saw briefly Ninja Zero's name flashing up there on our screens as we see Black Sheep going through the second sector, now coming onto the DRS straight. Also keeping an eye on Propi coming through turn 12 now. Don't think that's
Turning right by Black Sheep through 13. He took a more straighter line. It was more like a V rather than the sweeping U you generally see where you completely need to use the exit curves. Coming across the line, seem to have invalidates right at the very end. I wonder what time that was.
It was definitely up for a slightly faster time. As we see Pro P coming through the final corner here, important to get as much as possible. Ooh, just about managed to keep it that in tidy. Coming across the line here, and he does a 1:33, and you can see just how much time having no ERS, and now he's clicked the
Actually,
ERS.
I think he's now on a hot lap. Interesting. You don't want to be taking so much out of the tires, but as soon as he crossed the line, he turned up the ERS. So I believe that was just his banker lap or lap to try and get the temperatures into the tires into temperature.
It was either that or he's realized right at the end of the lap after seeing his lap time that something seems a bit off and he's decided to check his settings, his MFD, and then notices that the ERS is turned down. So,
That's a
benefit of the
fair
doubt.
possibility as well, yeah.
Benefit of the doubt. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that one.
I think the sector 2 was bugged out. It's showing purple for pretty much every driver we've been on board with.
I mean, you never know. These drivers could be genuinely finding time every single time. It seems highly unlikely, but just a little joke. We will see a lot of drivers running wide on the last corner during the race.
Just less than a tenth of, I'm sorry to cut you in over there, but 600ths of a second separating him from pole. That is barely any time. It's less than a blink of an eye.
600ths of a second, not that much time anywhere in any other sport in the world, but in F1 that will make all the difference between being second on the grid and starting on pole position. Still no time set from eccentric, but now we're starting to see drivers switch to those medium tires as Baba comes across the line at 1:30.6. I think he improved slightly on that lap as well. We see a couple of seconds off the fastest time, and he's also invalidated his lap there. Track limits are going to be playing a very big role here, aren't they?
All the fuel load, you generally do see a lot of drivers start picking up warnings over there. Aditya, interestingly, going with the medium strategy.
I think we saw all the drivers putting on the soft tires just to set the fastest lap of the session, and then now switching to the medium tires. Right now, only SD and Motomoto have currently set times on the medium tires.
Oh,
Started to get very sideways coming out.
Pretty good save. You've got to give the out of turn 7, but yeah, pretty good save. Ruins those tires for sure.
I think something tells me, just the way that some of the cars are behaving through Sector 2, that some drivers may be choosing to run a low drag setup so as to maximize speed. But it's about finding that balance between running too little downforce and then eventually struggling in Sector 2. I mean, China as a circuit is fairly fast. There's no real slow corners, maybe except the hairpin at turn 14 and maybe turn 6 in Sector 1. Apart from that, fairly high speed, so you could be tempted to run a low drag setup, but it's all about fine margins in terms of setup as well.
Couple seems to just be putting in some practice because these tires are 6 laps old and he's still on them. So somebody might need to tell him that there's only 3 minutes 30 seconds left, and I'll leave him with just 1 lap, possibly.
I think you might be diving into the pits right now.
Eccentric over here, the championship leader just set a purple Sector 1. Let's stay on board with him for the rest of this lap.
Keeping it very close to the curve on the right in Sector 2. Good lap from him so far.
Time to beat right now is a 50.7, and he's just about 600ths of pace. As Patnak learned the hard way out.
This is 13 is going to be very crucial on the run down to 14. Got a good exit there. Maybe not quite as wide as some of the other drivers going through there, but it's all right, I think, as long as the time at the end is fine. Heading down here, 150-meter board, just before the 100-meter board, braking. Another point where we could see drivers losing during the race, getting on the throttle a little too eagerly. Turn 16. Taking it brilliantly through there, coming across the line, and it goes third fastest, a 130.1 on the medium tyres from eccentric.
800s separating the top three right now. 200s separating P2 and P3. These boys are incredibly close together, and if that's going to, if we can learn anything from it, is the fact that we're going to have a pretty fun race. But
We haven't even seen some of the drivers, Myth, Helium, haven't even put in a lap yet, so this could get even tighter in that top 4, top 5. It's going to be very, 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 very tight between these drivers.
Electric, can we, on the settings, can you go to the best lap tires rather than tires fitted?
Sure.
Aditya's retired from the session in the pits, I believe.
You might choose to go for that long first stint, starting from the back of the grid. Might not be an entirely bad idea.
I see coming across the line, all those mediums, a second, 1.2 seconds off the pole time, but that gets him P6 right now. But Eccentric has that 131, and something we did not notice was that he was doing that on the mediums, which is massive. To be 800ths off pole on a harder compound tire.
Yep, I think he was just getting to grips with the track, with the setup during the early part of the qualifying session. It seems odd because he was suffering more with traction issues in sector 2 on the soft tires than he was on the medium tires. So definitely something in there maybe for us to food for thought, maybe going into the race. But he's currently on the second row in third place with a 130.1, as you mentioned. A couple of drivers choosing not to set a lap time at all. Everyone from Moto downwards not set a lap time yet. There are a couple of drivers on fast laps right now. Masoom also coming through sector 2 now, coming down towards turn 13. Ninja also gets a lap started. He's on the soft tires, though, unlike the other drivers ahead of him who are on the medium tires. As Helium also retires from the race. From the qualifying, my apologies. Both Mercedes drivers will be starting, well, dead last as it stands.
Zero seems to have gotten the purple sector 1 on these mediums with the best track conditions available. The track as rubbered in as it's going to be. Right now has a car in front, which should be getting out of the way pretty soon, but not right now, and that dirty air did him no favors, and unfortunately for him, he's going to be starting from the back as well. Centric heads into the pits. Hopefully we don't see anyone beat it like Lewis Hamilton did.
I think that was one of the lowest points in his career. I think that's one thing that he's genuinely embarrassed about, Lewis Hamilton, that whole incident in China. But it was his rookie season, so I think we can excuse him for it.
On another time run right now. Has provisional pole, has a car in front, not doing him any favors, but he's going to have to suck it up going through the final corner. Ooh, faster time, heads into the 129s. Mega lap by Black Sheep.
That's 4/10 faster than the previous driver.
Yeah.
Absolutely flying there. But that does mean that he will start on the soft tires.
Looks like pretty much everyone else is going to be on the mediums. I just think it's him, Wilster and Baba who will be on the softs. everyone else. I think P11, 12, 13. I think Tanish last time round gambled on the hards and it worked out pretty well for him.
It is going to be interesting to see as we are at the end of qualifying here. I don't think there are any other drivers on flying laps right now, so your pole sitter for this race is going to be Black Sheep, but Nayak rounds out the front row with a 130.1, 4/10 separating pole position from everyone else. Eccentric in P3, an absolutely mega lap on the medium tyres will set him up perfectly for the race strategy. P4, Wilster, and the session does come to an end.
P5 Myths. So Myths just starting two grid places behind his championship rival right now. That's going to heat up as well. It'll be super important for him to try and get Wilster at the race start and then try and put pressure on Eccentric. As those two battle for more than just this race win.
Mario P12, that's going to be another one of those. It's going to be another one of those comeback drives, isn't it? For Maranello starting from P12, he's going to be on the long first stint.
Surprising to see so many drivers not put in a lap time.
I think starting outside the top 10 gives them the flexibility of race strategy. They get to plan out their race exactly how they want to. They're not limited by what tires they're starting on. It just gives them a lot more freedom. And one could say that maybe given the freedom, maybe starting outside top 10 is a better shot at the podium, perhaps, than starting within the top 10, but not on the ideal strategy.
And all the drivers start picking up their strategies, everyone from P10, everyone from P11 onwards. We could see a few different strategies. I think we could see a couple of them on hards as well. So it could come down to a game strategy as well. But it is pretty difficult to follow a car because through Sector 2, the dirty app absolutely messes with you.
Indeed, yes. And this is also a track with, I mean, even on a clean lap, you're going to be encountering a lot of tire wear. So with the dirty air factored in, you're going to be absolutely burning up those tires if you're sitting behind a car for too long. So, I mean, if anything, that drivers are going to be going for the overtake whenever they get the opportunity, because it's not going to be wise to sit behind a car for too long around the circuit. We have seen qualifying come to an end. If you have witnessed qualifying, do drop in your race predictions in the chat. Who is your bet on for taking the race win around China? Who is going to be on the podium, and who's going to make the biggest comeback drive from outside the top 10? Let us know in the chat, and we'll have a look in a while. Maybe if your prediction's funny enough, maybe we'll laugh at it. 20 seconds left to go. Some of the drivers readying up here, and I think we have a pretty exciting race on our hands, don't we, Rusty?
Absolutely, it's going to be about strategy. It's going to be about your own racecraft. It's going to be about how well can you follow a car through Sector 2 and then making that move on Sector 3. As the cars leave for their formation lap, Black Sheep would want to keep backing up the pack. I'm pretty sure he's got all the experience, so he's not going to be trying to heat up his temperatures right now because the straight after 13 is long enough for you to heat up your softs. So right now it's just about him trying to drive slowly to make sure the pack is close together and he doesn't have to sit for long on those softs on the second straight. He's definitely going to have a massive advantage. I think everyone on the softs through the first complex from turn 1 to 4, you'll have a massive advantage. So if you're Wilster or if you're Babaji, it's all about trying to maximize that within the first few laps and try and pull away and not get stuck behind a medium runner. Can we check tires right now? Electric? And we'll change to position for the race start. Yep, so yep, thank you. So it's everyone's gone for the mediums after P11. Surprisingly, no one's thrown in that hard. I think Is that Maranello baby on hards? Yeah,
Yes.
Mara and Masoom on hards.
It did feel like my eyes were fooling me for a second there when you said everybody
Yeah.
was on mediums, but no, two of the drivers are on hard tires.
Two of the most experienced drivers on the hards. Mara starting from P16, Masoom P12. So Mara's backing up his strategy and his ability to put in decent to good times on those hards to keep him in the race for the victory towards the end of the race. But all the traffic ahead will not be doing him a lot of help. But then again, I don't think we'll see a safety car in China. You were massive runoff areas, but then this game does not depend on the runoff areas. It's just a coin toss for this game.
I mean, the less said about Codemasters games, the better right now, I think. Our incidents here on IRC, and it's been well documented that F1 is not a perfect game, but we persevere and we ensure that the show continues as per usual. You can see a lot of weaving drivers there. This reminds me of that Raikkonen meme from a couple of years ago when he's completely stoic when everybody else around him is warming up their tires, as we see a couple of drivers actually go off. There was a Renault, I think there was SD, just running off, and there's a Mercedes facing the other way.
I don't matter too much right now. If anything, it hurt everyone else on the grid.
Predicted pit stop strategy, apparently softs to hards is what the system predicts.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think hard will be a push. But it'll also come down to how well you're able to conserve your tires as these drivers now line up. And we should soon be lights off.
So Rusty, take us through the starting phase of this race.
Yep. Waiting for the lights to start going out, trying to keep the revs perfectly. 5 lights, and I'm just waiting for that to drop. Away we go. Really good start by the Williams. I think Eccentric got a great start, and Black Sheep seemed to have lost it absolutely as he got on throttle. And there's already a little bit of argy-bargy into turn 1, and that is, I think that was Patnaik to hit the rear. And this is just pandemonium. This is chaos right now as they head into turn 1 to 4. There seemed to be a lot of contact up there. I think that was Patnaik and Eccentric who got a brilliant start from the line, but all of that's ruined. 3 wide into turn 6, but it's the Alpha Boys giving each other respect and holding P3 and P4. So Tanish from outside the top 10 is already up to P3 right now.
Romeo Boys flying as it stands, but what's really unlucky is 2 of the podium sitters at the beginning of the session have now dropped to P14 and P50. I think Babaji also lost a huge amount of time in that opening phase. He was one of the soft runners looking to maximize that tire advantage at the front of the grid, but he will now have to fight through the grid on that with now a tire disadvantage, you could say, having to start on the soft tires at the back of the grid now. Just a little bit of jostling between the McLaren drivers there. We see a Red Bull spinning out in the background.
The other driver who started top 3 has also fallen away. He's lost it out of turn 13. I don't know if there was a tap, but he's now all the way to the back of the grid as well. This is some super surprising stuff as we see Masoom think about getting a move done on the inside, but I think Helium had him covered right now.
Absolutely strategic nightmare for those 3 soft runners right now. All 3 starting in the top 5, top 6 drivers, and now ending up in the bottom 6 drivers as we see some of the drivers coming into the pits. Myth inherits the race lead, and I think Patnaik has also pitted. Yes, he has. He's pitted because I think he may be harboring some front wing damage. Myth inherits the race lead. Interesting to see that Danish was ahead of. I think it's just the timing tree being a little bit broken at this point.
Oh, Masoom thinks about getting another move done on Helium. Masoom feeling super racy today. As Aditya's got the best seat to see that battle. Masoom round the outside, tries to get the move done, will have the inside line and gets the move done. Helium giving him respect. They did get super close together, but fair racing at the end. Brilliant by Masoom to send it round the outside on those hards. And get the move done on Helium. As now we see a McLaren Babaji diving into the inside of Eccentric, but Eccentric says there's no room over there. All about the exit out of 13 right now. You don't have DRS enabled yet. We'll have it next lap, so you've got to be relying on your overtake button. And Maranello Baby also seemed to have gotten the move done on Helium, and he will have the inside line heading into the braking zone. But they swap lines, but
3 wide coming through turn 13 there. 3 wide. The drivers were briefly side by side. They've now filtered out a little bit as the lead driver comes across the line. DRS is now enabled on lap 3. Now is when there's a couple of drivers encountering a little bit of connectivity issues. They're just phasing ahead and phasing back again. As you come through turn 1, long tightening right-hander, important to get the correct line to avoid losing too much time going through there. Eccentric, little tap again. He's been tapped again by another car, this time Ninja Zero in the Ferrari. He's absolutely fuming in that cockpit right now. Had the inside line going into turn 3.
Ooh, there's another tap, Babaji going. I mean, I don't think he was close enough to put in that dive bomb, and Helium definitely not as aware as Bottas was, and they come together. But I think in that incident with Eccentric, too early to say, but I think it was Eccentric veering out wide, and this game's damage model, contact model is pretty messed up, and that sent him into a spin. That's super unfortunate. It's a race of nightmares for those two up front, Black Sheep and Eccentric right now. But Tanish with a mega start, I'd really love if we could get an onboard of his race start. Really, and goes from P10 to P1 by turn 4.
You don't see it happening very often, do you, that your top 4 drivers all end up at the back of the grid. Actually, never mind. The 3 podium sitters are now sitting P14, P15, and P16 respectively. So this is going to be a very, very interesting race from their perspective as well, because, how do they proceed from here on outward? What's going to be the strategy going through their mind now? Have they gone for, if we could just have a look at what tyres those guys are on, it will give us...
I think Black Sheep's fit, and Black Sheep and Patnaik have fit for the medium, so they're committed to a 2-stopper, soft, medium. So, but up front, Tanish and Myth right now super close. If we could go on board with Myth. Yep, Myth got within 2 tenths heading into the braking zone, but not quite there enough. Did not risk a dive bomb as they head into turn 7, carrying all the speed. Myth with a super tight line, and that's gaining him time as he's taking he's taking the smallest possible way around these corners. It'll be all about the exit out of turn 30. Now, if he can stay within 5 tenths with the DRS, he should be looking at trying to inherit the race lead from Tanish. Tanish running a little wide, Myth with a more tighter line through there, now slipstreaming. Had the ERS on to get that best exit possible, and now he is catching in 2 tenths now. 1.5 DRS super strong through here on the inside. Tanish later on the brakes, but that inside line proving to be worthy enough for Myth to take the race lead. Interesting for Tanish to not take the inside line. He could have decided who's going to go on which line, but Myth takes the inside line, inherits the race lead, but Tanish can get back on him right now as they head into turns 1 to 4. Tanish now with the tighter line, right on the diffuser of Myth as they head into turn 4. A super tricky throttle, as you can see Tanish getting all out of shape over there, but did well to recover from it, and if he can stay within this time, heading into the 3rd sector, again you just keep seeing these 2 swap positions. But meanwhile for P3, there's quite a battle. It's a 4-way DRS train right now. I think if we could go on board Masoom, we'll probably have the best view for this battle. And if Masoom on those hards up to P6, he'll be mega in the final few laps, because if he can stretch these hards out and get the softs for the end of the race, he'll definitely be able to make a lot of moves and a lot of time on the car ahead. Super close to the Renault in front, and I think there was some contact, and that's what has SD's rear all out of shape. 8-cylinder.
Not quite entirely sure what happened there, but was very, very close between the two drivers coming out of turn 13. Masu, as you were saying, got a brilliant start and is benefiting a lot from this early stage where he's now at the tail of this DRS train, putting a sufficient gap between himself and the driver behind, as Maranello and Aditya are just going through a little battle here coming through sector 3. Jostling for track position constantly here as they come across the start-finish straight, but not quite sure what happened at turn 13 there. Just a little tap on the rear and completely spun out. I believe it was SD, but I'm not quite sure.
SD.
It was, yep.
Meanwhile, we saw a couple with a brilliant move to take P3 right now at turn 14. Late on the brakes, on the inside, got the move done on Moto, and now they're being hounded by two hard runners. They're being hounded by two of the most experienced drivers right now, Manilo Baby and Not So Masum, on those hards, separated by 0.5 of a second.
Now all the prospects of a good points finish in the constructors for both Williams and Ferrari rests on the two drivers that they have on the hard tyres right now. And you can only say that this opening phase has been very useful for them. I mean, probably at the expense of their teammates who are at the back of the grid right now, but you have to say that on the hard tyres, making up as many positions as possible at the start before that tyre advantage, or maybe before or while the hard tyres really lack an advantage, is going to be important, because now the soft runners and medium runners are going to be having issues with worn tyres. Not quite now, but a little later on in the race, as Couple has to go a little bit wide there.
Actually did a carbon copy of what Couple did. Maybe a little better. He said, if you can do it, I can do it a little better, as these two cars now wheel to wheel, Helium and Wilster, but Wilster gets the move done and then heads into the pits. That's surprising, but probably the better choice, because I think you lose so much time battling. If you can try and get the undercut, you'll be much faster towards it on the grander scheme of things. And Aditya right now has the best seat to see this battle simmer up between Manello Baby and Masum. Masum already has a 3-second time penalty, I believe, and possibly a trip to Stewart's room for his incident with SD right now.
It's a battle of the stalwarts right now. The IRC stalwarts having a big old duel here in Shanghai. Shanghai noon. Is that an appropriate joke to be made here? Maybe it is. But Maranello and Masum separated by just 0.5 of a second here. Close enough, you should say, Maranello to Masum's diffuser, that he will have a massive advantage coming down to turn 13 at the hairpin. You could also say that Aditya, if the two drivers do come together and lose time, he will look to pounce. As the DRS is open, he will have DRS being within a second. He does. Further up the road, Vanish is still squabbling with Myth as Maranello dives down the inside of Masum. Yep, the position very easily conceded, but it's not quite over yet, as Aditya is also right behind, licking his lips right now, watching this battle from behind. But I think Maranello, he does run a little bit wide on the exit of turn 16 there. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. Might pick up a warning, but he does put him a couple of tenths between himself and Masum. But Masum will once again have the run down into turn 1. Maranello running a little bit too wide, cutting back in at the last minute, retaining that tight inside line going into 2, 3, and 4. Ooh, a little sideways there, as Black Sheep is retired from the session.
He's lost it out of 13, I think. Massive understeer, probably driving frustrated at this moment, but he was right on the diffuser of Eccentric, and probably the dirty air sends him into a spin and he's DNF. And surprisingly, we don't see a VSC or an SC, but it was a nightmare race start for Black Sheep. Absolutely. I don't know what happened at the race start. It looked like Eccentric had a much better start, and then it looked like Black Sheep probably was too hard on the throttle and lost his rear. But we'll only be able to see it when we look at the incidents after everyone submits it. But right now the battle for P1 is still on. These two have been battling for quite the while. Myth got the overtake done, and ever since then Tanish has been trying to get that back, but Myth seems to be getting a lovely run out of turn 13, and seems to have Tanish just about covered. So it could now just come down to strategy. It could now come down to who picks first and gets that undercut done.
You can see Danish just struggling a little bit through sector 2. That's where he's losing a large majority of his time, even though he's got that DRS coming through sectors 1 and 3. But you can just the dirty air, as you said earlier, Rusty, is such a big aspect of this track that when you are sitting so close behind the car, it does become very difficult to follow, and that does compromise your run down to that long straight in third sector. We can see that Myth is still ahead, but only marginally. 4:10 separating the two drivers. We'll see just how far Danish, maybe he'll fall behind Myth here. Not much time lost through there, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was just a couple of scruffy laps, maybe a tenth or so further back, but it's definitely an interesting one. Not really sure why this battle hasn't progressed further, and we don't see...
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you in, but the battle for P3 is heating up. It's a three-way battle now. Mara's clearly pulled away from Masoom, and I think it's best to stay on board Mara right now, as his tires are probably in the best window right now, as the mediums will start fading away. Mara gets a little out of shape over there, and you can see that it's clearly cost him dear, and he's going to try and keep this away for another lap. But Mara seems to be having a lot of promising pace, because as soon as he's cleared Masoom, he's been a second quicker over the last lap. Couple things about a move getting done, he can still possibly get it done, but Moto just about has enough space for him to retain the race lead right now. Mara seems to be running quite constantly on the final corner. It could cause a penalty towards, and that could be super costly for him right now. The Tanish so far with possibly the best drive right now, goes from P11 to P2 right now, battling Myth, and that is hardly separated by a second. Those two have been so close for so long. I think Tanish is just waiting for that one tiny mistake from Myth. As these cars, you can see that Mara seems to be having more front grip right now.
Right now he's probably got those two drivers locked in his sights. Ooh, that dirty air really affecting his run through sector 2. Still right on Couple's diffuser here, as he will get a little run down. Ooh, very sideways coming out of turn 12.
See, Man also has his ERS almost at 100%. So it could just be a waiting game. He could just be waiting for Couple and Moto to use out their ERS and then try and get the move done. Right now, I think Moto far enough ahead to try to keep this place. As you can see, I think you've got to be within 4/10 heading into the exit of turn 13 to get that move done.
What he's doing is going to be backing up Couple more and more into Mara, and he's going to be involved in a battle.
Tanish Pitts will look for the undercut. I think once Smith, unless he extends and tries to get an overcut done, Tanish will have the race lead if Myth were to pick this lap. But I don't know how much longer these mediums can last. Possibly another lap or two at the most.
Just wondering what tire Tanish is probably going on. Probably choosing to go probably the hard tires. Yep.
Yeah. Can we move on to tires, please? Electric.
Q. As
goes on to the hards.
Goes on to the hard tires. Eccentric, you just saw as the warning flashed up there, has picked up a 3-second time penalty, probably for exceeding track limits. It is proving to be tough for some drivers here, as this battle for P2 still rolls on. Now the gap between Couple and Moto is just 5/10. I don't think that'll be enough, but the gap between Mara and Couple is also 5/10, so it's going to be interesting.
I think Mara now is just hoping that these two pit as quickly as possible. And I think if I were Couple, the best possible move right now would be to pit. Let's see if any of them dive into the pits. Looks like Montomoto is pitting. Yeah, Couple seems to have changed his mind in the last second. I think he is looking to pit as well, and that's cost him the exit. And Mara now on the outside of turn one. Let's see, hope if these two can keep it clean. Breaks later as well. Since he can take that wider line, will now have the inside line onto turn four. And Couple not fighting too hard right now, which is the smarter choice because his front ends are absolutely at the edge right now. They're ready to fall off the cliff.
60-70% wear on those front tires right now for Couple in the Alfa Romeo. Brilliant move there by Mara coming in through the first corner on the outside. Very difficult to take that outside line. Not many drivers go for it at the risk of maybe clipping the driver on the inside. Brilliant overtake there, and the experience really does show between those drivers. Myth currently cruising up front, 9 seconds clear of the rest of the field right now.
Yeah, but Tanish and Motomoto pit and they've come out in fresh air. So that's great news for both of them because they can just keep putting in the best possible laps without having to worry. But Ninja Zero's gone into the pits and retired. That's interesting. Seem to be having a pretty good race. Was P7 probably around P10 net, but he's gone into the pits and he's retired.
Virtual safety car as a result of that.
I don't think we're seeing a virtual safety car. Do we? Are we?
We do see yellows all across the track
Yeah.
right now, so I do think it's going to be a virtual safety car. Either that or we see a full safety car. We can see a couple of the drivers, top three drivers now going in for the pits. This will be massive for their race. They have now...
Oh, I think it's a safety car. Yeah. Yeah, it is a safety car, but this absolutely throws a spanner into the works for Maranello because mediums for how many laps do we have left? 15 laps, so probably will be taking them to the very end of their life.
Although...
But gets the track position, and this has been super useful for Myth because it just gave him a free pit stop on Tanish, which in turn means that he's got to keep his race lead.
You also have to consider that Mara may not have to run 15 laps. He'll probably spend 1 or 2 laps behind the safety car. So 13 laps is not too much of an ask for those medium tires. But yeah, as you said, a free pit stop for those drivers up in the top 3 right now, all going to the hard tires. And obviously Mara is on the inverted strategy, so he's going from hards to medium. So he's going to have... Yep.
P4 right now on the better tires probably has him as a race favorite right now. Super unlucky with the timing for Tanish because I think he'd have
I'll be right back in 30 seconds.
Yep, sure. Super unlucky for Tanish because I think he'd have definitely had the undercut on Myth. But Myth stays out for the overcut. Gets that tad bit lucky with Ninja Zero's retirement and the safety car coming out. Eccentric gets a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags.
Interesting penalty, but his race just keeps going from bad to worse right now. Just briefly exchanged position there with Patnaik, not quite sure what's happening there, but good to have you back. Just to give you a little recap maybe of what's been happening in this opening phase. If you are just joining us, we are 13 laps into what has been a very hectic Chinese Grand Prix so far. I think Rusty would agree with me on that. Definitely has been an eventful race that you've missed so far if you are just joining us. Pole position currently out of the race in P16. With the other 2 drivers are starting in the top 3, also at the back of the grid right now, and we have had a safety car in beginning of lap 13, and it's allowed for some of the drivers starting on the hard tires to essentially get a free pit stop at the front.
So I think as the pack is yet to catch up, those 3 at the end, Eccentric, Patnaik and Helium still a sector away. So hopefully over this lap they catch up to the safety car and hopefully I think we'll see another lap of safety car, and then we'll resume racing. But Masoom, I'm not quite sure. I think he should have pitted just like Mara did for the mediums. Because he's really going to struggle now. At the race start itself, I think Tanish will have the position. And after that, I think Masoom will just keep continuing to struggle. But at the same time, if Masoom can keep his car ahead from between turns 1 to 4, I think he'll just start feeding everyone into Marinello Baby. But what just happened to Myth? He's all the way down in P9 right now. Can we go on board Myth?
I think he may have pitted again for a set of medium tires.
I don't think so. Because, no, I don't see why he would. Oh yes, seems to have pit again. That's an interesting strategy.
I think he's just seen that the drivers ahead are going to be on the hard tires, and maybe that gives him a greater chance of finishing higher up than potentially losing time to the drivers.
In this lap, that's a super late call, and Masoom heads into the pits now. This is getting super confusing, but Masoom's into the pits and he's gonna be pretty much starting from pit lane if this were a restart, and that gives Tanish the lead he probably had once again, but Marinello Baby caught on his tail with the better choice of tires. And I simply don't understand what Masoom's doing right now, but Marinello Baby gets the run into turn 1, gets the race lead, and on those mediums should try and run away right now as some of the cars get all out of shape on the exit of turn 4, but Marinello Baby now sitting happily up ahead, and this is Aditya looks to get a move done, absolutely sends it over there and gets the move done on Couple. I'm pretty sure Couple's not going to be happy with that. Did well to counter steer and leave just about enough room, but that's some ballsy racing by Aditya. Someone's feeling super racy today, and that gives him P3 right now.
Very, very quick on the restart. Absolutely wasting no time getting ahead of those drivers, getting ahead of Danish at the race restart.
On the inside of Moto, late on the brakes, making use of all the grip those mediums provide, and he's already up to P5 right now.
Yeah, Mitt's going to be licking his lips in the latter stages of the race as well. He's looking very racy as well. Going on those medium tires may have just been a great call from his side. He does lose a couple of positions, obviously, by making the pit stop. Still, DRS hasn't been activated.
Oh, that's a late dive bomb by Eccentric. That there is no way he was getting that position. I'm not quite sure what he was doing there, but I don't know. That was just super poor move. And that FG running super wide, rejoining the track. That was Babaji, I'm sorry. Super rejoining the track just about there, and Eccentric feeling super racy now sends it round the outside.
All the drivers getting their elbows out, just getting to this stage of the race after the safety car. It's almost like a clean slate for other drivers, just getting them a chance to reset themselves, get into the mindset again. Eccentric, after being nearly 30 seconds behind the rest of the grid, is now back up into the points. Considering all the things that have happened to him, he'll look at that and think, okay, it's not been an entirely bad result considering what happened on lap 1, but we see all the drivers getting very racy here. Myth now getting very racy against Aditya in P3. Ooh, getting incredibly close to contact. There is contact, not quite sure if that was a netcode issue or an actual...
I think Myth just had too much speed into that corner, have the better tires, but you've got to respect the car in front. Sometimes they're slower because of the tires, sometimes they're slower because of gap in skill, but I think that's definitely a report that wasn't very nice there, and I'm pretty sure Aditya is absolutely raging right now.
Aditya, who had a chance at the podium after sending it up the inside of Kapil at turn 6 under questionable circumstances, now finds himself the receiving end of an incident under questionable circumstances, and it's going to be very interesting now in the last 12 laps of this race. As again the top 3 order is shuffled. We've had so many drivers now inheriting those top 3 positions, it's hard to keep track.
Absolutely, Mets now back up to P3 and will be on the gearbox of Tanish soon enough. On those medium tires, I think 1.6 seconds he should be able to get within DRS of Tanish. But Masoom, not quite sure what he was thinking. Fits exactly when it's his safety car coming in, and that's put him dead last.
It's not a very it's not a very smart decision that he's decided to make, staying out so long under the safety car. Just thought maybe he could get away with staying there, but the safety car maybe lingered around a little bit longer than Masoom would have initially maybe foreseen, and then right at the last minute, and he chose a very possibly the worst time during the safety car period to pit, because right as he pitted, I think everyone went green, or yeah, I think that's basically what happened, and it didn't do him any favors. But he's now finds himself at the tail end of the grid after potentially setting himself up for a podium. So interesting from his side, as we just see a couple of drivers fighting
Now
their
on the
eccentric down the inside of SD and take it away.
Yep, got that run out of 13 pressure tire. I mean, the softer tires, and got the move done, heading right into the braking zone. But right now, I think the battle to watch is the battle for P2. Myth setting the fastest lap of the race, and he's cut down the gap by about 1.3 seconds over the course of the last lap. And Moto round the outside of Eccentric, tries to fight back and get that place back, but I don't quite think there's enough right now. Oh, yeah, I think Eccentric has. Oh, that was Moto and Couple. I'm really sorry. But Couple holds on. Mitch tries to reverse, sends it round down the inside. Very Daniel Ricciardo-esque, and he gets the move done, and he is now going to try and chase Maranello, baby, for that race win.
It's now setting itself up to be a very interesting last 10 laps of this race. I've used the word interesting a little bit too many times, but I don't think there's a more apt word to describe this race so far. It's been very interesting. Just getting a little bit too wide. Is that a penalty? No, I think he was already carrying that penalty from earlier. But yes, it's going to be very crucial now for Myth to cut that gap down as much as possible. He's not just facing any old driver, he's facing Mara, and he's facing a very fast, racy Maranello as well, so definitely going to be an interesting one coming down to the final 10 laps.
Those two drivers respect each other a lot, and right now you see Moto and Couple continuing that battle from the last time round. Wheel to wheel, Couple will have the inside line heading into 13, 16, but decides against it. We've seen multiple crashes happen over there, but Moto will now have the position on Couple. Let's see if Couple fights back through turn 1, thinks about the inside, tells the dummy, but Moto seemed to have moved a little late, in my opinion, but Couple thinks about sending it down the outside, and that's just opened up the door for Eccentric to join the battle, as these two are now super close to each other heading into the next straight.
You can imagine Couple's mindset coming into turn 1 there, just wanted to hold it round the outside, now trying again, now trying to defend his position now from Eccentric, who's on the attack as well. Keep in mind that Eccentric is carrying penalties, so he's going to be on max attack right until the end of this race now to try and maximize the number of points that he's getting. But it's going to be very tight between these three drivers. It's going to be an absolute full-out brawl for the final podium position.
And that 8 seconds definitely not going to do Eccentric any good. I think the 5 seconds could be resolved with the stewards. We've seen the game give silly 5-second penalties for ignoring yellow flags, but that's a discussion for later. But right now the battle on track is for P4, as Couple seem to have fallen that tad bit away from Moto, and while Couple has DRS, it becomes really hard for Eccentric to try and get that move done.
What if Eccentric does rake in as many points as possible, it's going to be a very... You would think that he would be pretty satisfied with that result, considering what happened on lap 1.
Yep, absolutely. Further ahead, I think Myth after this race will inherit the championship lead. So all of these things, every race matters right now. It's just been that kind of a season.
We also have another race winner in Maranello if he continues to retain this position, which should be interesting, and it'll make the season as a whole a lot more competitive, as there's a very deep dive bomb and someone is sent spinning. I think that was Capiles who got spun around completely there.
It's going to be a super long week in the stewards. I can assure you that. So I mean, Black Sheep's taken an early DNF, probably just so that he can prepare himself for all the discussions that's going to be taking place in the stewards home.
I think Black Sheep's poor start, I think it was just a case of heavy right foot. I don't think it was any kind
Yeah,
of
I agree.
contact.
But
So,
I was talking about all the incidents since.
yeah, that's true. Yes, it's going to be a very busy night for the stewards as they look to dissect all the proceedings of today's race, but less on that right now and more on the action as a lot of drivers.
Also got the move done on Moto. I think we might have missed that, and now he is in the battle for a podium.
I think Eccentric benefited a lot there from the Kapil's incident. I think he was also a little. I think his car got unsettled as well coming through turn 6, and Eccentric just made the most of the situation.
Can we go on board Eccentric, because it did look like he tapped the rear of Kapil. Let's see if he's got any damage. So doesn't look like he's got any damage.
I think his left wing, the left part of his wing, may be carrying just a marginal amount of damage. I don't know how much that's going to be affecting his lap, but he is carrying a little bit of damage on his on the left side of his wing. Either that or my eyes are fooling me.
No, but it did show so on the telemetry, but as long as you have your end plate, I think you're good to go. And he clearly had his end plate on, so he does have that teeny little damage, but I don't think that'll cost him too much time right now.
Good then.
As you can see, he's already catching up to Tanish. Oh no, we've got our host couple has left the lobby, and that's not good news because it just is a potential trigger for glitches to start taking place right now.
I think that might just be. I don't think that might be a network issue. I think that might just be Kapil maybe choosing to end his race right there. It would be a little bit harsh to say that he's given up, but considering we have 6 laps to go and he's 35 seconds behind Batnaik at this point, it's going to be difficult as a driver to find motivation there to keep going. But we do see Babaji picking up a penalty there, 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits, most probably.
Yep, so Masoom's done pretty well to come back from being absolutely dead last into P11. So if he can try and keep up the pace, he might finish in points as well.
A lot of people in the comments saying Tier 1 is bumper cars, Tier 2 is built.
Yeah, I mean, this season Tier 2 has been getting a lot of accolades. I think the racing over there, the fights for the race lead, the fights in the midfield have been fabulous, and I still think today has been pretty uncharacteristic of these guys. I think all through there we have Moto absolutely losing it, and that's a retirement, loses his front left, and I don't know if that was just him losing it because of the dirty air, or if there was again some contact or something like that, but it's been a super uncharacteristic race. I think last time I remember after China in Tier 1 there were a lot of tempers, and I think it could be a bit of the same today.
It's one of those tracks, isn't it? It just never ceases to cause controversy, never ceases to deliver on action. It's just one of those tracks that always has a high quota for entertainment, and we're seeing that again today. Which only begs the question, if they're seeing this much in Tier 1, then what's going to be the state of Tier 3 and Tier 2? It's going to be an absolute firecracker of a couple of races over this weekend, so do stay tuned to the IRC channel.
I think one thing I've noticed in Tier 2 is the fact that the drivers are really good at choosing their battles. They know whom to battle, they know when to not lose time battling the car in front. I think some of the viewers who are watching might agree, but right now we've still got a bunch of battles. We've got Wilster within 5/10 of the real SD, and right now we are on board Aditya who's within 4/10 of Babaji. Coming across sector 2, I think Mitz is gaining a little bit of time on Manello Baby, but not quite at the rate he requires to try and get the race lead. Tanish falling away on those hards. That pit stop by mid, pretty impressive to be honest. So risk all of that track position to go on mediums. Oh, we got some more contact. Yeah, it's just been the case. It's just been the case all around, and I think Babaji has rage quit at that point of time. Got to respect the car in front. Just because you're the faster car does not mean you nudge them out of your way. But
Zoom would have definitely had a code brown moment there as he came across, had ghosting not been enabled because he just saw two cars facing the opposite direction coming into turn 12. But he hasn't. He has now made it up into the points places after a questionable choice of pit, after questionable time to pit on the safety car. But yeah, it's going to be a long night in the steward's office tonight after incidents like that we've just seen.
yeah, I really don't know what to say. I think everyone's feeling super racy today. But
and I think Eccentric is now catching up to Thanos. 8/10 now between the two drivers. That is going to also be another battle to keep an eye out for in these final stages. Eccentric now is going to be fighting for every point that he can get realistically, because 8 seconds now would put him all the way down to, I would say around about P7, P8 is where he's looking to finish right now. So he'll be looking to extract as much time as possible and try to put himself as far ahead as possible so that he can get the points that you would say he so deserves after qualifying third and unfortunately being spun around in the early stages.
yeah, I agree. I think right now for him, getting past Tanish is not the battle for P3. He doesn't care about P3 right now. It's about having fresh air to try and pull away and try and ensure that you don't lose positions to the cars behind. But right now he's stuck behind Tanish, and that's costing him a lot of time.
You could say that getting past Danish would give him the fresh air that he wants, but maybe that's a little bit of an aggressive strategy. Maybe in my mind. But these boys know better than I do.
From the inside, does he, as he just about has him covered, taking the wider line but the faster line through there. Coming out of turn 4, Will still has a few more laps to try and get the move done, but I'm pretty sure he does not want to be risking too much, because I'm pretty sure he's aware that SD is carrying a 3-second time penalty and there's no need for him to risk everything going into this.
SD was also very respectful of Wilster coming into turn 1. Right immediately, probably saw Wilster's proximity arrow flashing up on his display, and immediately choosing to run wide and choosing to utilize that outside line going into turn 2. Not quite, or rather you would say giving Wilster the right amount of respect and letting him sort of make up some time on the inside. But again, that's going to disadvantage him coming down this back straight now, as Wilster is separated by just 5/10. Maybe that's a little bit too far back if he uses ERS, but you can bet that SD is going to be on the ERS as well, trying to defend that position.
Separates on the inside of Tanish and does not leave a lot of space on the outside, but gets the move done, elbows out all along.
At this stage in the race, it's going to be every man for himself. I don't think at this point that there's going to be, I wouldn't say sportsmanship goes out the window, but maybe that it's less so a priority as getting the position done. We did see a lot of that in the Formula 2 race in real life today, if anybody was watching in the chat.
See, now having to defend, Winster is now aware that SD's run out of ERS. You could see along the main straight that SD's rear light was flickering, so Wilster is now, I think, going to try and save it for the back straight.
It does. It'll give him a net 4th position, Wilster, if he can make it up into 5th place before the checkered flag drops, because Eccentric obviously will lose a bit of time. He is now actually no, I don't think he will, because Eccentric is nearly 10 seconds clear now, so.
But either way, I think right now top 3 are Marinello, Met and Tanish.
Yep, that's
Tanish
probably
doing well to try and stay within 1 second of eccentric and try to maximize the DRS he'll gain from there.
just again a little too far back, even further back so than the previous lap. SD is still harvesting energy, but doing a much better job of staying ahead than Wilster is trying to get ahead.
He's one of the drivers with probably the better racecraft. He's always been brilliant, but Tanish with a super expensive 3-second time penalty, and suddenly, if Eccentric can get that 5-second penalty removed, if it was an unfair penalty, he could be looking at P3 right now. That is super expensive for Tanish right there.
It might not necessarily bring SD into contention, but it might bring Wilster into contention if Wilster can get past SD and make some time up on those guys ahead. Coming now down to the last 2 laps of the race, it's going to be now or never for Wilster. Just looking down the grid, not really many other battles. I think, but Nayak might be involved in a battle with Babaji, but I think it's a little. I think it's a little too late for that battle right now.
Ghosted.
Yeah, so
He left the session.
So Nayak just getting another position there. He's 15 seconds behind Pro Player, and Profi is also got a 3-second penalty. So Nayak will be finishing outside the points. The battles now to keep an eye out for is at the front of the grid.
I think Tanish tires are back in the window. I think Eccentric tires are now really old, and Tanish seems to be putting up a challenge. Wilster again not close enough. I think SD's just been nailing sector 2. Can we go on board Tanish? Yep. As we head into the final lap, Myth 1.6 seconds behind Manelo Baby. That's a tall order to ask. But meanwhile, Tanish just 6/10, and looks like his hards are in a much better state than Eccentric's mediums. Eccentric have been pushing those mediums to the edge as he had to make up so many positions. It'll be interesting to see if Tanish can get a good run into sector 2 and try and get the move done. Tanish out of ERS, though that's not going to be helpful for him as they start on the climb up to turn 7. We saw a brilliant move earlier in the race by Masoom. I think that's probably my favorite move of the day. Taking the outside round turn 7 and then inheriting the inside onto turn 8 and getting the move done on turn 9. I think Masoom's move. That was probably the move of the race for me, as Tanish capped a 6/10, but without ERS, I don't quite think he'll get the move done. Myth just cut 6/10 of a second on this lap, but will not have DRS, and the race leaders come to the final few corners. What a drive it has been from Manelo Baby. Absolutely got the strategy right. Got super lucky, you could say, with the safety car and that, but nonetheless, brilliant drive, keeping it on the track. Both of these drivers coming across the line to finish P1, P2, and I think Tanish will take P3 right now. Could not get the move done on Eccentric, but nonetheless got unlucky with the safety car. I think Tanish is the biggest loser of that safety car, but a P3 nonetheless. A solid mega drive from him. Wilster gets P4 thanks to Eccentric's penalties. SD P6, Helium P7, Masoom comes across the line P8 with some brilliant racing, but with some terrible strategy calls, and actually loses that position to Aditya due to the post-race time penalties. Pro Player is the last points finisher at P10, and that brings an end to our session over here. There was a lot happening across the board. There were a lot of incidents. There was a lot of overtaking. But I'm pretty sure the stewards are going to have a lot to go through.
Fantastic
Also,
work from Manelo.
I actually just saw in the comment section that Masoom actually disconnected when the SC came out, and that's probably why he ended up on that strategy. But Manelo Baby with the last, was it the last to first? I think it was, right?
Yep, he started right at the back of the grid.
Yep, all of those incidents aiding him. He didn't have to do a lot of overtaking thanks to that, but P16 to P1, you couldn't ask more from a driver, and he absolutely delivers it in the Williams, who are celebrating a 750th race of the season in Monaco right now. The 750th F1 race in Monaco right now, but
Only,
Hertz,
it's
there's a
only
lot
up
to talk
then.
about this race. Yeah, I'm
It's,
sorry.
it's only up then that a Williams finishes the race, not only on the podium but also takes the race win, all things considered. So I think brilliant drive from Maranello. Not the first time and definitely not the last time as well.
And we have our top three joining joining the VC, and we'll soon get cracking. But if you missed, it's Manelo Baby who did a P16 to P1 myth with a P5, with an interesting strategy called chose to concede track positions behind SC Pit twice to go back on those mediums, and that seemed to have made the difference for him. But first, starting off with Tanish. Tanish, I think you're the biggest loser with the safety car. Fair to say.
Yes, I think not with the safety car. The fact that I didn't have an extra set of mediums was the worst case scenario because I couldn't pit again, like myth or eccentric. So yeah, I just had to carry on with the hards, and it's still a good race. Like starting from the back and just getting so lucky at the start.
Yeah,
It's still
I'm
nice.
sorry to ask you, can you talk us through how you gained 10 positions by the time you were at turn 6?
I think I took some classes from Kimi Raikkonen for today. I don't know. I just started and I saw black sheep going in onto the grass and like there was carnage at the first corner. So I just know, okay, I have to stay calm. Don't like push too much just to get positions. Just try to protect my car, don't get wing damage. And yes, what it was a good race. Yeah, nothing more to say.
Now moving on to mid. Interesting race. You were battling a car. You were battling mostly Tanish for most of the race, but then when you decided to concede track positions on the mediums, you had to get a lot of overtaking done, and there seemed to be a lot going on across the grid. And your thoughts on that, Myth?
Personally, it was actually a really fun race for me, and it was, I guess, an unconventional decision to pit on the mediums again in the safety car. But uh, staying on the hards, I felt there was literally no point where I could try for the win because the mediums are just too good to keep behind. Especially, I think Mara had a lot of ERS coming through, and there was not really much point staying on hards. So I just decided to dive into the pits for mediums, playing a gamble, and I'd say it worked out. And at the end of the day, like eccentric was looking really strong, and finishing ahead of him itself is like kind of a win.
I think you have closed in massively on the championship standings heading into the race. It was 15 points, but with the comeback drive from Eccentric in the last few laps, I think he'll still probably be ahead at the end of this race week. But moving ahead to Manelo Baby, P16 to P1, a lot of overtake being done on those hards while you were not really using a lot of ERS. Can you talk us through that?
Yep. So I went for a bit of a gamble. I obviously wasn't hoping for a safety car, and I wasn't expecting to sort of get that lucky. But before I start, congratulations, Tanish. Congratulations, Myth, on the podiums. But yeah, coming back to the point, I think the goal was to just get through the hard stint with as minimal time loss as possible. And every time I saw a few battles, I made a decision not to fight them. I went for very low downforce setup on my rear wing to help me get through the traffic, but I sort of didn't predict the effect that would have on dirty air. So I pretty much had no traction out of corners. So I decided to sit back, minimize time loss, and it paid off eventually. People made mistakes, I got through, and then I could focus my ERS on the leaders.
And that safety car did help you quite a bit because that was pretty much a free pit stop over there. But a lot of clean overtakes by you. I think you would remember last year, China, there was a lot of talk going on, but must be good to come back and have a really good race this time around in China.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was on edge the entire second stint because I picked up 2 warnings on the hard tires while trying to either avoid cars or sort of just making a mistake. I think I avoided a car with 1 warning and I made a mistake on the other. So I needed to sort of just conserve, and I was basically measuring my pace. I didn't want to push too hard. I just wanted to sort of get across the checkered flag cleanly, and I think I'm going to call that a complete win.
But Tanish, once Smith got that move done on you, you kept within 6/10 of him for pretty much the rest of the stint until you decided to undercut him. Why do you think you could not get that position back from it? Do you think he was getting a good run out of 13, or what was preventing you or bothering you through that
The
stint?
thing is, like, he was fast for sure. Like, it was not easy to overtake him even with the DRS or ERS maybe. Like, I already had less, so it was not easy to overtake. So yeah, I mean, I just tried to keep match the pace, the times he's doing, so that I just don't get like quite far behind and try to get an undercut maybe. But safety cars, it just screwed the strategy.
It's unfortunate, but 8-cylinder, you got any questions?
No, nothing from my side. I think you cleared up all the doubts from my end as well. Great drive again to all the three drivers. Great podium from Danish. I think he's my driver of the day for doing well. No offense, Mara. I think you drove a great race as well. But yeah, I think overall it was a fantastic drive from all three drivers. And I have nothing further to add.
Yep. I mean, I wouldn't take offense to that. Tanish had to stick on his hard tires and fight with medium runners, so he's probably my driver of the day as well.
I think Tanish is my driver of the day as well. I think he got undone with that safety car and not having that set of medium, but he still, I think Tanish, you would agree that you still had a lot of good pace. You seem to be threatening eccentric. Maybe with a lap or two, you would have gotten the move done on him once again, but brilliant drive on those hards.
Yeah, Tanesh, why did you just bit on old me?
I didn't have an extra set of mediums, it was just soft, so it was not viable to just
Even
run
the
fast.
old mediums, like there would have been some used mediums, right? Like
Wait.
4% or something.
Wasn't that the tires? Wait, oh my god.
But
I
about your
just,
Yeah, because
quality
that's what
mediums,
he
I think.
was. I know, like 4 to 5%.
I just got confused with the, like, I thought they are the tires I'm currently running, which is not possible, but I don't know, just I was thinking, and it just screwed me. Yeah, my bad. Anyways, good race. Yep, thank you.
Leclerc pole, race win. I'm gonna go have a beer and enjoy this evening. Great day.
I think
Yeah.
we can do
Yeah,
that.
that's all right.
And I think, if anything, our three podium drivers are proving to those watching in Tier 2 and Tier 3 is that no matter how far back you start, there's still a chance for you to take the race win. And I think we can conclude on that. It's been a fantastic race from everyone today. I think it's been an absolute brilliant spectacle for us in the commentary box as well. Any closing thoughts, Rusty?
No, I think you've summed it up pretty well. And good night to everyone watching. Thank you for sticking around until this moment. We do have a Tier 3 and the Tier 2 race tomorrow. So much talked about Tier 2 race, as you can see in the comments. So do tune in tomorrow as well. And I'd like to thank everyone, especially Electric, for the stream, and all the admins at IRC who do a great work over the course of the week to bring this to you. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.